Back to Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. Tom, all right, so it is 34 felony counts for falsifying business records. And we just heard Lydia talk about something. I've seen a lot of conversation about the statute of limitations. Explain further to us why that applies here.
Well, you know, the legal theory, my understanding of it is that, you know, typically these are misdemeanors, the business records charges, and the statute of limitations is passed on that issue. And the way to get past that 7 years later is to try to stuff them into this felony of a crime related to campaign finance spending. Now, you know, Judicial Watch asked the Federal Election Commission for communications with Bragg. They didn't have anything. So I'm not sure what he's doing or what he's thinking about here. And, you know, this is 34 counts. We all know what the transaction's about. So what he's doing is he's saying, well, there was this one issue that resulted in $130,000 in payments, so we're going to turn that into a 34-count indictment, which further highlights the abuse. In my view, this is a rigged prosecution to ensure a rigged election. And I tell you, I don't know who this judge is. You know, I do know literally.
Right.
But, you know, he's a local judge in New York. Bragg is a local DA in New York, in Manhattan there. And they shouldn't be running the country by trying to ruin this man.
You know, it's you bring up the judge, Juan Marchan, who President Trump has already voiced some concerns about because of his involvement with other cases that involve President Trump and his organization. I guess as an overture, I was reading this morning that one of the things that they decided to do was spare former President Trump being handcuffed, although I've read, not sure, it's not been confirmed that he was in a holding cell with some inmates up for petty crimes. When we talk about this potential gag order, Tom, I mean, we're still waiting to hear. Maybe it happens. It's been leaked enough. What do you make of that, particularly since President Trump is riding high in the polls right now?
Well, again, this is a case. Is a local judge in New York going to start running our presidential campaign by restricting the ability of the leading candidate at this time to talk about the issue that's the #1 issue for the campaign? That can't be the case. And I want to extend this over to Congress. Congress has an urgent interest in figuring out the federal role, if any, in funding this operation up in New York. And my approach would be defund New York to the extent practical with by taking federal tax dollars and making sure they're not misused for the violations of President Trump's civil rights. You know, he has a right to equal protection of the law. Does anyone think he's being treated under that rubric? Of course not.
So there's talk that maybe the next step in this process, the ability to have this thrown out. How long would it take? Who would have that authority?
Well, you'd have to talk with all the criminal defense lawyers up in New York. Obviously, the judge here could have it thrown out. I'm not quite sure what the appellate process is if the judge initially turned aside any request by Trump's team to throw it out. But you know, based on everyone's understanding of what's going on, you know, even supporters of making Trump a political prisoner are a little hesitant about these charges. So who knows? Maybe law and order will prevail here.
Him and then my own F-block then. So Tom, again, the outpouring, ironically, of support for President Trump on this. I don't know who did the political calculus. It's obviously backfiring with respect to trying to demonize President Trump. But there are other cases out there. Are you looking at these cases, and do they have any sort of real, true, honest-to-goodness political standing?
Well, I think they're all part of a piece here. You have Democrats in Fulton County, Georgia, trying to make a criminal case out of his disputing the contest in Georgia. You have in Washington, D.C., the Biden Justice Department operation targeting Trump over, again, disputing the election against Biden and over, in my view, this ridiculous document fight they concocted to try to ensnare him. You know, Bragg is just one example of a politicized law enforcement by Democrats up and down the eastern seaboard. It's awful.
What do you expect, or should we expect, to hear from the White House? So far, it's been no comment, but something this large, something this historic, shouldn't we expect to hear the current president of the United States chime in?
Well, I think he has an obligation to denounce this, but he's not going to. He's going to pretend that he can't really interfere or have anything comment one way or another, which is an endorsement, and it shows that he's condoning this abuse of Trump. I really think there's, you're either on one side or the other. You're either pro-American and oppose making Trump a political prisoner, or you're un-American and endorse this abuse.
There are some potential Trump opponents within the Republican Party. No one's coming out and saying, hey, they are applauding this, obviously, but some are playing their cards close to the vest, and there's been some hint, some scuttlebutt that maybe the GOP will take this into consideration with respect to backing President Trump or former President Trump, or whether he's even qualified to run for office. Should the Republican Party take this that seriously?
Well, that's a political question. My view is if you don't let your political opponents or those who want to destroy you dictate who you nominate. That's what I would personally advise. And if I were running for president, I would defend President Trump. I mean, that's the right thing to do. And anyone who thinks by abandoning Trump they'll be protected, no. They want to jail anyone who gets in the way. And if you get in the way at the wrong time, they will come after you. And it's not just Trump. You're seeing it with Elon Musk. You're seeing it with the January 6th defendants who are being charged with violations of law that have never been applied before in the history of D.C. Protests and rioting. I mean, this shows you that this isn't just about Trump. This instinct by the left to use law enforcement to go after their political opponents is a growing danger.
Tom Fitton, it was really fortunate for us to be able to have you on to walk us through this process, and no one really covers this as well as you do from the legal side. And I appreciate you also giving us a little bit political opinion as well. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.